The porcelain teacup flew across the room and shattered against the marble wall, exploding into white shards that skidded across the floor like scattered teeth. Every single person in the grand sitting room froze. No one screamed. No one flinched. No one even breathed. Lydia Seo stood at the center of the room, her fingers still lifted from where she had released the cup. Her face was calm, almost serene, as if she had simply set the cup down gently instead of hurling it with lethal precision. Her dark eyes swept over the trembling staff, lingering just long enough on each face to remind them why silence was the only safe response. "Clean it," she said softly. 3 servants rushed forward at once, nearly colliding with each other as they knelt to gather the broken pieces. One of them cut her finger, a thin line of blood appearing instantly. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. Lydia watched without expression. From the far end of the room, seated in a black leather chair with his legs crossed and his posture relaxed, Han Jae-min observed everything in silence. He did not interfere. He never did. His power did not need to announce itself. It existed in the way the entire mansion revolved around him like obedient planets, and Lydia, his fiancée, had become a force of gravity all her own. Blackridge Estate was known across Virion City for many things: its impenetrable security, its quiet luxury, and the fact that no one who worked there ever stayed long. People whispered that the guards feared Lydia more than they feared Han. They said she smiled when people were dismissed and slept peacefully the same nights others packed their belongings in tears. By the time the shattered teacup was gone, Lydia had already turned away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor as she exited the room. Only then did the staff release the breath they'd been holding. "She's in a mood today," someone whispered. "She's always in a mood," another murmured back. Han finally stood, straightening the cuffs of his tailored suit. "Resume your duties," he said calmly. At once, the room emptied. By the next morning, a new name was added to the estate's employment roster. Amara Hale arrived at Blackridge just before sunrise. The iron gates parted slowly as the security checkpoint scanned her credentials. She sat upright in the back of the transport vehicle, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes steady as the massive mansion emerged through the morning fog. Its dark stone exterior loomed like a fortress, cold and unwelcoming. "You sure you want this job?" the driver asked, glancing at her through the rear-view mirror. "People don't last long here." Amara met his eyes briefly. "I'll be fine." He frowned. "That's what the others said." She didn't respond. Inside the mansion, the head housekeeper, Mrs. Calloway, looked Amara up and down with a mix of relief and pity. "Housekeeping duties only. You follow instructions exactly as given. You do not speak unless spoken to. And whatever you do—" "I don't look her in the eye," Amara finished calmly. Mrs. Calloway blinked. "You've heard about her?" "I've heard enough." "Then you understand," the older woman said quietly. "This isn't a normal house." Amara nodded once. "I'm not a normal maid." The words slipped out without arrogance, without challenge. Just a statement. Mrs. Calloway hesitated, then handed her a uniform. "Change quickly, she'll be coming down for breakfast." Amara tied her hair back neatly, smoothing the plain black uniform over her slim frame. When she stepped back into the hallway, the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt tighter, heavier. Lydia Seo descended the grand staircase moments later. She wore cream silk that hugged her figure perfectly, her dark hair pinned elegantly behind her ears. Her presence alone altered the temperature of the room. Conversations died instantly. Footsteps stilled. Amara was arranging flowers on a console table near the stairs when Lydia stopped abruptly. "Who are you?" Lydia asked. The question wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a blade. Amara turned slowly, her movements controlled, and faced her. "I'm Amara," she said. The new housekeeper? Mrs. Calloway's breath caught. A few feet away, a young maid nearly dropped the tray she was holding. Amara had made the mistake. She was looking directly at Lydia Seo. Lydia's lips curved into a small smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. "Did no one explain the rules to you?" "They did," Amara replied evenly. "Then why are you breaking them?" Amara held her gaze, unflinching. "Because rules based on fear don't last." The words landed like a slap. Silence crashed over the hall so violently it felt physical. Lydia's smile faded, replaced by something darker, sharper. Han Jae-min, who had been walking in from the adjoining corridor, stopped mid-step. His eyes shifted to Amara. "Interesting." Lydia laughed softly. "You're brave," she said, "or very stupid." "Sometimes those look the same," Amara answered. A murmur rippled through the staff. Lydia stepped closer, invading Amara's space. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes." "And you still chose to speak like that?" "Yes." Lydia studied her face, searching for fear. There was none. No tremor in her hands, no panic in her eyes. Just calm. That disturbed her more than open defiance ever could. "Fine," Lydia said at last. "Let's see how long that confidence lasts." She turned away sharply. "Mrs. Calloway, assign her to the West Wing. Every room. Today." Mrs. Calloway's face drained of color. "The West Wing?" "But today," Lydia repeated. Han said nothing. Amara inclined her head. "I'll start immediately." As she walked away, Lydia's eyes followed her, narrowing. For the first time in years, someone had looked at her without fear. And Lydia Seo did not know how to handle that. By midday, word had spread through the mansion. The new maid hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. She hadn't quit. Instead, she worked through the West Wing methodically, ignoring the deliberate attempts to overwhelm her. When a stack of linens was accidentally dropped in her path, she picked them up without complaint. When another maid muttered insults under her breath, Amara didn't react. But she noticed everything. By evening, Lydia watched from the balcony as Amara exited the West Wing, posture still straight, expression unchanged. Han stepped beside her. "You're unusually quiet." "She disrespected me," Lydia said. "And yet you didn't punish her." Lydia's jaw tightened. "Not yet." Below them, Amara paused, as if sensing the weight of someone's gaze. She looked up. Her eyes met Han Jae-min's. Just for a moment. And for reasons he couldn't explain, Han felt something shift deep in his chest. The tension settled into Blackridge Estate like a living thing. By the second morning, Amara could feel it following her through the corridors, clinging to her back as she worked. Conversation stopped when she entered rooms. Eyes darted away too quickly. No one spoke to her unless absolutely necessary. She didn't mind. Fear made people careless. Silence made them observable. She was polishing the banister on the east staircase when two maids passed behind her. "She's still here," one whispered. "For now," the other replied. "No one survives Lydia." Amara continued polishing, her reflection steady in the dark wood. She counted her breaths, letting the murmurs slide past her like dust. Later that morning, Mrs. Calloway approached her in the linen room, wringing her hands. "You shouldn't have looked at her like that," she said quietly. "She takes it personally." "I'm aware," Amara replied, folding a stack of sheets with perfect precision. "Then why did you do it?" Amara paused. "Because she wanted me not to." Mrs. Calloway stared at her. "You really don't understand how dangerous this house is." Amara met her gaze gently. "I understand more than you think." The breakfast bell rang through the estate. Lydia arrived dressed in crimson that day, a calculated choice, the color of dominance, the color of warning. She sat at the long dining table, sipping her tea as servants moved around her like shadows. "Where is the new girl?" Lydia asked casually. Mrs. Calloway stiffened. Amara is cleaning the guest rooms, ma'am. Lydia smiled. Send her to me. Amara was summoned within minutes. As she entered the dining hall, every servant instinctively stepped back, creating distance as if proximity alone might implicate them. Lydia watched Amara approach, noting her even stride, the way she stopped a respectful distance away without bowing too low. You're late, Lydia said. I was called just now, Amara replied. You're late, Lydia repeated, eyes hardening. That's disrespect. Amara tilted her head slightly. If you say so. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the room. Lydia set her teacup down slowly. I don't like your tone. I don't have one, Amara said calmly. Only words. Lydia rose from her chair. You think you're different, don't you? I think I'm observant. And what have you observed? Lydia asked, stepping closer. That people here are afraid of you, Amara answered. And that you enjoy it. The insult was quiet, devastating. Lydia's hand twitched at her side. You don't belong here. That's for Mr. Han to decide, Amara said. Han Jae-min, seated at the head of the table, lifted his gaze. The room froze. Is there a problem? He asked. Lydia turned to him instantly, her expression softening. She's insolent. Han looked at Amara. Is that true? Amara met his eyes. I answered a question. Han studied her for a long moment, then he nodded once. See that it doesn't happen again. Yes, sir, Amara replied. Lydia's eyes burned. That afternoon, Lydia made her move. Amara returned to the staff quarters to find her locker open, her belongings scattered across the floor. A gold bracelet lay conspicuously atop the mess, one Lydia had worn earlier that day. A guard appeared moments later. You're needed upstairs. The accusation was swift. You stole from me, Lydia said, holding up the matching bracelet on her wrist. I want her searched. The staff looked on in horror as security stepped forward. Amara didn't protest. Go ahead. They searched her bag. Nothing. Lydia's smile faltered. Perhaps she hid it, Lydia said sharply. Amara bent down, picked up the bracelet from the floor, and held it up. This one, Mrs. Calloway gasped. That wasn't there before. Silence fell. Amara placed the bracelet gently on the table. If I were going to steal from you, she said softly, I wouldn't choose something so obvious. Lydia's cheeks flushed. Get out. Amara inclined her head. Of course. As she left the room, Lydia slammed her fist against the table. That evening, Han summoned Amara to his study. She entered cautiously, taking in the shelves of leather-bound books, the low lighting, the smell of cedar and smoke. Han stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. You don't act like a maid, he said without turning. I act like myself, Amara replied. He turned then, studying her. You're not afraid of her. No. Why? Because fear gives people too much power. Han considered this. You've worked in places like this before? Yes. Where? Amara hesitated. Private households. That's vague. On purpose. Han's lips curved slightly. You're careful. I have to be. He stepped closer. Lydia doesn't like being challenged. I'm not challenging her, Amara said. I'm existing. Han laughed quietly. That might be worse. Outside the study, Lydia listened from the shadows, her nails digging into her palms. By the third day, Lydia's composure began to crack. She criticized Amara publicly, assigned her demeaning tasks, altered her schedule repeatedly to exhaust her. Yet Amara remained unbroken. Worse, she was gaining quiet respect. A young maid whispered, She's not scared. A guard nodded. She walks like she belongs. Lydia overheard. That night, Lydia cornered Amara in the service corridor. You think you're winning, Lydia hissed. Amara met her gaze calmly. This isn't a competition. Everything is a competition, Lydia snapped, especially with women like you. Women like me? Amara asked. Women who think silence is strength. Amara smiled faintly. It is. Lydia's hand shot out, but stopped inches from Amara's face. Careful, Amara said quietly. There are cameras here. Lydia recoiled as if burned. You're manipulating him, Lydia accused. I haven't touched him, Amara replied. You're doing that yourself. Lydia stormed away, shaking. That night, alone in her room, Lydia stared at her reflection. For the first time in years, the woman staring back looked uncertain. And downstairs, as Amara finished her shift, Han watched her leave the corridor, a question forming in his mind that unsettled him deeply. Who exactly had he invited into his house? The shift in Lydia Seo did not happen all at once. It crept in through small cracks, missed sleep, sudden impatience, a sharpness in her voice that no longer felt calculated but reactive. Those closest to her noticed first. The guards exchanged glances when she snapped orders twice. The staff learned to stay farther out of her reach. Amara noticed everything. By the fourth morning, Lydia changed the seating arrangement at breakfast without explanation. She placed Amara closer to the main hall instead of keeping her invisible along the walls. It was a test. Amara understood immediately. She moved with the same unhurried calm, serving tea, collecting plates, never lowering her head too much, never lifting it too high. She could feel Lydia's eyes burning into her back. Stop, Lydia said suddenly. Amara halted. You missed a spot, Lydia added, pointing to a perfectly clean section of table. Amara leaned in, inspected it carefully. I don't see it. Lydia's smile was thin. Then perhaps your eyesight is failing. Or perhaps, Amara said softly, you want me to kneel. The room went deathly still. Han Jae-min paused mid-motion, his chopsticks hovering in the air. Lydia rose slowly. Get down. Amara did not move. The servants held their breath. Han's gaze sharpened. Lydia. She didn't look at him. I said get down. Amara turned to face her fully. If you need someone to kneel to feel powerful, she said evenly, that says more about you than me. Lydia slapped her. The sound cracked through the hall like a gunshot. A maid screamed before she could stop herself. Amara staggered a half step, her cheek stinging, her head snapping to the side. For a moment, everyone expected her to cry, to break, to beg. She didn't. Slowly, deliberately, Amara turned back. Her eyes were steady. Her voice was quiet. Now everyone sees, she said. Lydia's chest heaved. Get her out of my sight. Han stood. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. That's enough, he said. Lydia whirled toward him. She humiliated me. She warned you, Han replied calmly. The entire room stared. Lydia's face drained of color. You're taking her side? There are no sides, Han said. There is control. And you lost it. The words hit harder than the slap ever could. Amara lowered her gaze, not in submission, but in restraint, and stepped back. I'll return to work. She left the hall without another word. Behind her, Lydia stood shaking. From that moment on, the house changed. Staff members began to seek Amara out quietly. How do you stay calm? One whispered late that night as they folded laundry together. Amara didn't look up. I don't let people decide who I am. Another maid asked, Aren't you scared she'll destroy you? Amara paused, then said gently, People who destroy others are usually already broken. Word traveled. Not loudly, not recklessly, but it traveled. By the end of the week, Lydia's authority was no longer absolute. It was questioned in glances, in delayed responses, in the way staff no longer jumped quite as fast. Lydia felt it. She began pacing her room at night, replaying every interaction, every word Amara had spoken. She hated that woman's composure. Hated the way Han's eyes followed her sometimes. Hated that the house felt less like hers. "You're losing him," Lydia told her reflection one evening. Her reflection didn't deny it. So Lydia escalated. She invited guests, important ones, men who smiled too sharply, women who watched too closely, allies who owed her favors. The dinner was extravagant. Gold cutlery, rare wine, live musicians playing softly in the background. Amara was assigned to serve directly beside Lydia. Another test. As the night progressed, Lydia made sure to humiliate her at every opportunity. "She's new," Lydia told a guest loudly. "Not very bright, but obedient enough." Amara poured wine without reacting. "Careful," Lydia added, leaning back in her chair. "She spills when she's nervous." Amara set the bottle down smoothly. "Only when the floor is uneven." A few guests chuckled. Lydia's smile tightened. Later, as dessert was served, Lydia leaned close to one of her allies and whispered loudly enough for Amara to hear. "They bring these girls in and expect them to behave. They forget their place." Amara placed the plate down. "My place," she said quietly, "is wherever I stand." The table fell silent. Han looked at Amara, then at Lydia. The shift was unmistakable. After dinner, Lydia confronted Han in private. "You let her disrespect me," she said sharply. "She speaks the truth," Han replied. Lydia's eyes widened. "You've changed." "No," he said. "You have." She laughed bitterly. "Because of her?" "Because you're afraid," Han said. "And fear makes you cruel." Lydia stepped back. "You think I'm afraid?" "Yes." She stared at him, disbelief and fury warring in her eyes. "You're choosing her." "I'm choosing clarity," he said. That night, Lydia made her most dangerous decision. She arranged for Amara to be followed. By morning, she had information, or so she thought. "You lied," Lydia said coldly when she summoned Amara to the sitting room. "You're not just a maid." Amara met her gaze calmly. "I never said I was." "I know who you are now," Lydia continued. "You think your past makes you untouchable." Amara said nothing. "You worked for powerful families," Lydia pressed. "Cleaning their messes, managing their scandals. You think that gives you power here?" "It gives me perspective," Amara replied. Lydia laughed harshly. "You're nothing without their protection." Amara stepped closer. "And you're nothing without his fear." Lydia recoiled as if struck. "Say it again," she whispered. Amara's voice was steady. "You rule this house because people are afraid of what you'll do if they don't obey. But fear fades. Respect lasts." Lydia's hand trembled. "I can destroy you." "You could try," Amara said. "But you won't." "Why not?" Lydia demanded. "Because if you do," Amara said softly, "you'll prove everything I've already shown him." Silence stretched between them. For the first time, Lydia saw it. Amara wasn't trying to win. She was waiting. That evening, Han summoned Lydia. Their conversation lasted over an hour. When Lydia emerged, her face was pale, her steps unsteady. The next day, the engagement ring disappeared from her finger. The house noticed. Everyone noticed. And as Lydia retreated further into herself, her power draining with every step, Amara continued her duties, unchanged, unbothered, watching the final collapse begin. The morning Lydia failed to come down for breakfast, the house knew something was wrong. It wasn't announced. No orders were given. No doors were slammed. But the absence itself was loud. Lydia Seo had never missed breakfast, not once since moving into Blackridge. Her presence had always arrived before the sun fully settled into the windows, sharp and deliberate. Han Jae-min noticed immediately. "Where is she?" he asked Mrs. Calloway. "She said she wasn't feeling well." The woman replied carefully. "She requested privacy." Han nodded, but his eyes lingered on the staircase longer than usual. Amara watched from the far side of the hall, folding napkins with quiet precision. She felt the shift too. When power weakens, it thrashes before it dies. By midday, Lydia summoned her. Not publicly, privately. The request alone sent a ripple of panic through the staff. A guard escorted Amara to Lydia's sitting room, then closed the door behind her. Lydia stood near the window, her back turned. She was dressed in black, her hair loose, her posture rigid. "You've turned them against me," Lydia said without turning around. "I haven't spoken badly about you," Amara replied. "You didn't have to," Lydia snapped. "You just had to exist." She turned, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing. "Do you know what I gave up to be here?" Amara said nothing. "I erased my past. I buried who I was so I could stand beside him," Lydia continued. "And you walk in here with your calm and your silence, and suddenly I'm the monster?" "No," Amara said quietly. "You made that choice yourself." Lydia laughed bitterly. "You think you're better than me?" "I think I'm honest," Amara replied. Lydia's voice cracked. "He looks at you differently." Amara met her gaze steadily. "He looks at you like someone he doesn't recognize anymore." The words hit hard. For a moment, Lydia looked like she might cry. Then her expression hardened. "Get out," she said. Amara inclined her head and turned toward the door. "Don't think this is over," Lydia added softly. "You don't know how far I'll go." Amara paused at the door. "I think you do," she said. "And that's what scares you." That afternoon, the house was locked down. Extra guards. Restricted access. Phones confiscated from staff. Han didn't announce the reason, but everyone felt the tension spike. Amara was cleaning the west corridor when a guard approached her. "You're needed in the security wing." She followed without resistance. Inside the monitoring room, Han stood with two men she didn't recognize. They were older, their suits immaculate, their eyes sharp with experience. "Ms. Hale," Han said, "these men have questions for you." Amara nodded calmly. "I expected that." One of the men leaned forward. "You've worked for the Devereaux family, the Ilians, the Morettis." "Yes. You specialize in containment," the man continued. "Damage control. Behavioral stabilization." "I did," Amara agreed. "Why are you here?" he asked. Amara looked at Han. "Because you let chaos grow in your house and didn't realize it." The room went still. Han studied her. "You were sent." "I was recommended," Amara corrected. "You chose." The second man frowned. "By whom?" Amara hesitated. "Someone who wanted to know if you ruled your empire, or if fear ruled it for you." Silence followed. Han exhaled slowly. "And your assessment?" Amara met his gaze. "You do, but you allowed someone else to speak for you." Han nodded once. At that exact moment, alarms began to blare. A guard burst in. "Sir, there's been a breach in the East Wing. Lydia, she's gone." Han's expression hardened instantly. "How?" "She accessed a private exit, took 2 vehicles." Amara closed her eyes briefly. "She's not running," she said. "She's repositioning." Han turned to her sharply. "You knew she would do this." "I knew she would try to regain control," Amara replied. "This is the only way she knows how." By nightfall, Lydia made her move. Information began leaking. Rumors, half-truths, carefully planted stories questioning Han's leadership, his stability, his loyalty. By morning, Han's phone was flooded. "She's attacking your image," one advisor said. "She's making it personal," another added. Han stood by the window, silent. Amara stood a few steps behind him. "She's desperate," she said. "Desperate people don't think long-term." "She knows where to hit," Han replied. "Yes," Amara said. "But she also knows where she's vulnerable." Han turned. which is her need to be seen as powerful, Amara said. Expose the fear beneath it, and she collapses. Han studied her. You're suggesting I confront her. I'm suggesting you let her expose herself. 2 days later, Lydia returned. She arrived unannounced, dressed in white this time, her posture composed, her smile back in place. She walked into the main hall as if nothing had happened. I needed space, she told Han calmly. I was overwhelmed. Han watched her closely. And the rumors? She waved a dismissive hand. People talk. Amara stood nearby, unseen but attentive. Lydia's eyes flicked to her. Why is she still here? Han didn't answer immediately. Because, Lydia continued, if you choose her over me, you'll regret it. Han stepped forward. Sit down, Lydia. She obeyed, confusion flashing across her face. I've allowed you too much freedom, Han said, and you used it to rule through fear. I did what was necessary, Lydia snapped. You did what was convenient, Han replied. And now everyone sees it. Lydia laughed nervously. You're overreacting. Amara spoke for the first time. No, she said. You're underestimating how much you've already lost. Lydia stood abruptly. You don't get to speak. Han raised a hand. She does. That was the moment. The exact second Lydia realized it was over. Her face twisted with rage. After everything I gave you? You gave me control through terror, Han said. And I never asked for that. Guards entered the hall quietly. Lydia backed away. You wouldn't. I am, Han said. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of fury. You think this makes you strong? She spat. Han's voice was calm. No, it makes me honest. Lydia was escorted out without another word. The doors closed behind her with finality. The house exhaled. That night, as Blackridge settled into an unfamiliar calm, Amara packed her belongings. Han found her at the service entrance. You're leaving, he said. Yes. You've done what you came to do. Amara nodded. The house is stable now. Han hesitated. I could offer you something more permanent. Amara smiled gently. You already have what you need. She stepped past him, disappearing into the night. Han watched until she was gone. And for the first time in a long time, Blackridge felt like it belonged to him, alone. The news of Lydia Seo's removal did not spread loudly. It didn't need to. In the world Han Jae-min ruled, silence carried farther than gunfire. By the time dawn broke over Virion City, the message had already reached the right ears. Meetings were postponed. Calls were returned faster. People who had once spoken Lydia's name with reverence or fear now avoided it altogether. At Blackridge Estate, the change was immediate. Staff moved differently. Not hurried, not tense, just purposeful. Doors no longer slammed. Orders were given clearly, without venom. Even the guards stood straighter, as if an invisible weight had finally been lifted from their shoulders. Mrs. Calloway paused outside the staff quarters, listening to the quiet. I never thought I'd hear this house breathe, she murmured. But one presence was missing. Amara Hale was gone. Her room was empty. Her locker cleared. No note. No farewell. Just the faint scent of lavender soap lingering in the air. Han noticed before anyone told him. He stood in the west corridor where she had so often worked, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the polished floors. He told himself it didn't matter. Her job was done. She had come, corrected the imbalance, and left. Clean work. Professional. And yet, the house felt altered. Not unstable, exposed. Later that afternoon, one of Han's senior advisors spoke carefully. Lydia is not contesting the separation. Han nodded. She won't. She's left the country, the advisor continued. Quietly. Good, Han replied. That should have been the end of it, But Lydia Seo had never been a woman who accepted endings easily. 2 weeks later, the first sign appeared. An old ally declined a meeting, another delayed a shipment, a third asked, politely, whether Han's household was truly settled. Han listened, expression unreadable. "She's still testing you," the advisor said. From a distance. Han said nothing. That night, as rain tapped against the tall windows of his study, Han found himself reaching for his phone. He stared at the screen for a long moment before making the call. It rang twice. Then a familiar, calm voice answered. "You waited longer than I expected." "Where are you?" Han asked. "Somewhere quiet," Amara replied. "I need you back." There was a pause. Not surprised. Not tempted. "You don't," she said gently. "You just think you do." "She's still moving pieces," Han said. "Lydia." "I know," Amara replied. "That's why I left." Han frowned. "Explain." "If I stayed," she said, "she would make this about me. About jealousy. About replacement. By leaving, I removed the last story she could tell herself." "You're very sure of that." "I am." Another pause. Han lowered his voice. "What if I asked you to stay? Not as staff, not as protection, but as someone I trust." Amara exhaled softly. "Trust isn't built on crisis, Han. It's built on time and honesty." "And you don't think this is honest?" "I think this is vulnerable," she said. "That's different." The call ended without promises. Weeks passed. Lydia's influence continued to shrink. Without access to Blackridge, without the proximity to Han's authority, her threats rang hollow. Those who had followed her out of fear now saw her for what she was, a woman who had mistaken proximity to power for power itself. Han restructured his household carefully. New rules, clear boundaries, no exceptions. Fear was replaced with accountability, and slowly, respect followed. One evening, months later, Han attended a private gathering hosted by neutral parties, people who watched power shifts the way others watched weather. Amara was there, not announced, not introduced. She stood near the edge of the room, dressed simply, speaking quietly with someone Han didn't recognize. She looked exactly as she always had, composed, observant, unassuming. Their eyes met across the room. This time, she didn't look away. Han approached slowly. "You're still watching?" "Yes," Amara said. "Old habits." "And your assessment?" he asked. She studied him for a moment. "You're doing better." He nodded. "Because I stopped hiding behind other people's cruelty." A faint smile touched her lips. "That's growth." "Will you come back?" Han asked. "Not to the house, not to the role. Just back." Amara considered him carefully. "Only if you understand something. I'm listening." "I don't belong to your world," she said. "I move through it. I don't kneel in it." Han met her gaze. "I wouldn't ask you to." Silence stretched between them, not heavy, not tense, just real. Across the room, someone whispered, "That's her." "The one Lydia feared?" Another voice replied, "No. That's the one Lydia couldn't control." Amara heard it. She didn't react. That night, when the gathering ended, Amara stepped outside into the cool air. Han followed. "You changed everything," he said quietly. "No," she corrected. "I showed you what was already broken." "And Lydia?" he asked. Amara's eyes were calm. "She'll always look for rooms where fear still lives, but she won't find them here again." Han nodded. As Amara walked away into the night, this time by choice, Han understood something with absolute clarity. The most dangerous person he had ever allowed into his house had not been the woman who screamed, or threatened, or ruled with terror. It had been the woman who needed none of that, the one who arrived without fear, and left without regret. Because real power never announces itself. It simply changes everything and moves on. If this story kept you watching till the end, then you already know what to do. Like this video to let YouTube know you want more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel for powerful, emotional stories where silence speaks louder than violence, and where no one is ever who they seem. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.